Hey guys, here's my second video to help you leverage Foundry VTT and some of the various modules I've installed, and things are now working much better, and it's actually pretty cool and should help our gameplay a little bit on Sunday. So just want to walk through those with you and give you a demo of them. And the four topic areas are going to be some combat and targeting and enhancements. This is mostly for the spellcasters to walk through how spells are working now with the token Action Hud, and then want to talk about ammunition. We haven't really done anything with that, but walk you through that and how you can manage that, and then show you some of the roll tables. So I've given you access to those roll tables, so it'll be easier for you to leverage in certain events, and I'll talk to you about those events. So with that, let's go ahead and get started and start talking about combat. So I've got my two characters here. I've given them access. So I've got my Paladin and Vgon. I'm going to steal you for this demo. And you've got two gnolls here. So I'll use things that you've already been experiencing and have seen in the adventure. So let's first talk about the improvements. So let's talk about targeting, right? So targeting helps in regards to knowing who you're attacking, and then it's also going to help with die rolls and damage rolls. And just so you know, I've turned off the dice rolling in this just to make it easier, so you won't see the dice, but it'll show up in the chat. So when we have an active combat running and it comes up to your turn where that little circle shows up around your character, there's two ways of targeting who you're attacking. The first is a double right click. So notice this red outline around that gnoll or that gnoll. If I do a double right click, those four arrows mean that he's being targeted. So this has currently got Krusk, who is targeting this gnoll. And if I were to double click on this, the target will slip over. And just to show you what it looks like from my end, right, so I can see the little blue dot is on this gnoll, and if I go back here and I double click on this, right, as the DM, I'll see that, the blue dot, so I know who you're targeting. The other way to target is, or untarget, is to use in the upper left this little bullseye symbol, right, so it says select targets. So if I click that, I can just left click single, and I can just determine who I want to target. And then just to complete your actions, just click on the four corner square, and now it's no longer in targeting mode, and you can, left click and do whatever you need to do. So that's how you target a creature, and then once you're done targeting, again, right click, double right click will remove it, or you can just use the target and single click on it just to remove it from there. One other cool thing before I get into how that's going to help combat is notice now that the token Action HUD is there, so you don't have to have your character selected. It knows who the player is, right? It says Jay the player down here. I'm assigned to Krusk. Great. And this just is going to show up automatically, so I don't have to be selected anymore to go, okay, click your token, now go up here and then take an action. If I'm not necessarily selected, it's showing up. So if it's, hey, make a skill check. All right, I'm going to make an insight check. Here it is. I just made my insight check of a roll of 18. Great. Fantastic. So just a little bit of advantage of some of the changes that should make gameplay a little easier. So let's go back to combat. So I've got Krusk. He's going to target this gnoll, and let's just assume that we're in melee, right? So what's going to happen? I'm going to swing my longsword. Okay, so over here in the chat, you notice, okay, here's your longsword description. It says attack roll, and it shows the 2 dice plus 7. So I can roll that. Now, before rolling, a couple of things. This is going to be a normal roll. Again, if I right-click to toggle, so I just move my mouse over there and see it says right-click to toggle. So if I right-click once, it says advantage. If I right-click a second time, it says disadvantage. If I right-click a third time, it goes back to our normal roll. So that's a way that in combat we can now manage rolls with advantage or disadvantage, and it's just a right click to cycle through it. So if you accidentally see that, that's what's happened. That also can happen from here. So if I go up to my token Action HUD, hover over my longsword, nope, actually I was wrong. It happens down here in the macros. So notice here if I say, hover over the longsword in the macro, it says right click to toggle. It now says advantage. It now says disadvantage. And it now goes back to normal just by right-clicking on the icon. So that's just another way of managing it if you want to make a roll. So if I were to click here and then click the macro, it's going to automatically come into the chat over here on the right, and it's going to say, attack with advantage, but I can still right click to cycle through it. So now you've got the null icon here because you've targeted him, you rolled the hit, and what's going to happen is the attack is going to automatically compare your roll to the targeted creature's armor class. So it's going to tell you if it's a hit or a miss. So there's no more, hey, what's his AC? Did I hit? It's going to throw either a check mark or an X. And Null's AC is 15, 19 hits. Fantastic. Click your dice. You did 7 points of damage. Fantastic. As the DM, what I'm going to see is the same thing. I see you roll a 19, it's a hit, I see the damage, and I'm going to apply it. So now, for this demo, I'm showing you their hit points because I want to show you a few other things that are going on. Notice that the hit points went down without me having to necessarily go through and right click and subtract it. So that's another advantage of being targeted. And that works both ways. So as this null, I can target Krusk. All right, so I'm going to be that null, I'm going to select you, I'm going to target you, right? So now this null, I'm going to throw a bite your way, right? Same type of thing. Here's Krusk, here's the attack roll, that's a miss. I'm just going to throw another one just to show it to you until I can hit. Oh, that's a definite miss. Bite. 18 is a hit, right? So now I see the same thing. You see the X says it's a miss, no damage shows up also to confirm, but now that because I hit, I roll the piercing damage for 4 points, and then I can apply it for you automatically. So you're now down to down 4 hit points. So if I were to open this character sheet, right, 122 to 118. So again, the idea of, okay, now go subtract is now kind of handled through the combat methodology by using targeting. Now, if you don't target, that's fine. Then we'll just do it the manual way. Just tell me who you're targeting. You can do your pings. Just say I'm targeting this guy and I do 4 points of damage. Great, then I can highlight. Now, Rob, I know you were having trouble the other day for some reason, manually reducing. I don't know what that is, but to manually do reduce hit points if you need to is you right click on your character, and down here when this 118, that's your hit points, if you just single click, just a single left click in there, notice it becomes minus 118. Now you can type -5 and now it's going to reduce it manually. There's no need to do much more than that. You can make sure you go in there, you can backspace it and then type the -5 or the +5 or whatnot. So just a pointer on that. So that's a little bit about targeting and the advantages of targeting. So now let me show you one other interesting thing that's going on now. Let me just untarget him. I'm going to go back here to this null and I'm going to untarget him. So now we're just kind of to a clean slate. The other thing that can happen with targeting, which is really slick, is it can take into account resistances, vulnerabilities, and immunities that are identified on the sheet. So for example, right, so here I've got Krusk, right? You don't have any immunities, any resistance, or any vulnerabilities, but just for demo purposes, I've given this null up here. He's immune to fire, he's resistant to lightning, and vulnerable to cold, and I'll show you kind of how that's going to work. But let me do one other thing. Let me go back here, and I'm going to actually make him resistant to, say, let's give him resistant to slashing damage, which is what your sword does, right? So update that. Okay, so now going back here as Krusk, I'm going to target this guy. Okay, so now I'm targeted that null. I'm going to swing with my sword. Right, 26 is a hit. I do 7 points of damage. Okay, so now when I go to apply this, all right, so notice that this null here has 17 hit points, right? I've given him a resistance to slashing, so when I apply this, he's only taking 3. So notice he only dropped 3. So another advantage is it automatically builds in the awareness of resistance, immunities, and vulnerability. So if I do a cold attack, it's actually going to double it. If I did a fire attack, which I'll show you in a second, he'll be immune. So to show that, let's go back here. I'm going to now, let me just, for sake of this, just untarget him. I'm going to click on VGone. So notice up here the HUD says VGone, and I've got Firebolt. So I'm going to just target him as VGone, and I'm going to Firebolt this guy. and let's do +6. So 17 is a hit. Fantastic. You would do, ooh, mighty 1. But now, notice that when I come over here to apply this, right, I applied that, it's 0 damage. He doesn't take any damage. And if I were to make him immune or vulnerable to fire, then he could actually take double damage. So same thing, you know, vice versa. So as you guys build resistances and things of that nature, it'll automatically be calculated in the combat. So pretty cool. Should help gameplay, you know, rather than trying to say, well, am I vulnerable, am I not? It'll just help speed that up. So that's targeting and some of the combat and how this is working over here. Before I move on to spells, let me just quickly talk about a cool feature about the token Action Hud as well that I found is if you don't like where it's located, if you grab this little 4 arrow, you can reposition it. So if you prefer it to be in the middle, to be it on the left, or keep it on the right, you now have control of placing it wherever you'd like to place it on the screen. Whatever's easiest for you. All right, so let's show spells. So I know one of the last things is spells weren't working from the token Action Hud, and other things were going on. So that's been fixed, which is great news. So if I come up here to spells, spells are going to be dependent upon your spell slots. So if I've used all my spell slots for a certain level, they're not going to show. So it'll just keep you on track. And the way to know your spell slots is it tells you right here. Notice it says level 1, 4 of 4, level 2, 2, 3 of 3, level 3, 2 of 3, because that's showing Krusk, right? If I show Vgon, right here are your cantrips, and you've used you've got 2 of 3 spell slots left. That's the 2/3 over here for your level 1 spells. So let's say I do let's target this guy. Okay, I'm gonna do a chromatic orb. Great, so you're going to get this little thing that always is going to pop up, consume spell slot, say yes, unless I tell you otherwise, right? Chromatic Orb is an attack, fantastic. Here's the 17 points of damage, right? Let's do a cold attack just to show you how that works, right? So now you roll your damage, great, so I do 10 points of damage. I'd come over here as the DM and go, now apply it. Now, see it's the 2 times, so now he's actually going to take -20, and he's dead. So that's that, taking into account the immunities and things of that nature on the spread on the character sheet. But for now, I'm just going to give him some more hit points so we can continue the demo. All right, so that's Chromatic Orb. And notice now it says 1 of 3, so I've got 1 spell slot left. So let's do Magic Missile, because Magic Missile is a little different now, and I think it's pretty cool. So now if I cast Magic Missile, same thing, spell slot, fantastic, Magic Missile. All right, I've got this guy targeted, right? So now it says do my damage, 1d4 plus 1 of force. Okay, great, so let's roll that. Now, again, on my side, what I'll do is I'll apply that to that null. You'll see his hit points drop. Now, you'll have 2 options. If you hover over this card, notice there's 2 symbols, but now it's got this little circle arrow that looks back on itself. If I click it, it now throws that die up again. Great, so let me roll that damage. Fantastic, 4, I'd apply that. I'm gonna go apply it here. All right, he's not dead yet. But now let's say he died. If you change your target to this null, okay, so I just double right clicked on this null, and now I come back here and I do the little arrow, because at first level or second level you only get 3 magic missiles, right? So here's my 3rd magic missile. I'm going to roll that damage. Now me as the DM, when I apply this, watch this null down here with the blue dot, right? When I apply this, it takes it off of this null. So the magic missile is kind of cool. Unfortunately, if you got 10, we've got to do it 10 times. But if you're going to target it all, then we can just manually roll. But this is a way if you want to distribute your magic missiles to multiple targets and just keep rolling the damage. You just use this little circle, and we can work through that. So that's pretty cool. So let's untarget him, and let's go back to spells. Now, notice there are no 1st level spells showing up. Why? What happened? Well, that's because you're out of spell slots, right? So it's keeping track of your used spell slots, and when you run out, it's not going to show that spell level. So that's pretty cool. If you go to your character sheet, right? You can see that here as well, right? So here are your cantrips, here's your first level spells, 0 of 3. But because I want to continue this demo, I'm just going to quickly give you a long rest. Fantastic. Now you've got all your spells back, all your spell slots, you got 3 of 3. So let's talk about spell templates, because I know we had some questions in how does this work. So from here, and it's going to work the same if you have it as a macro down here. All right, and I'll show you that. I'll use Krusk and his fireball. The paladin with the fireball is always a cool thing. But let me show you Vigon up here. So he's going to cast now his Thunder Wave spell. And that's going to say, you know, consume a spell slot, yes, place measure template. So the measure template is based off of the range, or is based off of the area of effect of the spell, and it'll automatically determine if it's a cone, if it's a square, if it's a circle, whatever. So when you see this, just keep it checked and you say cast spell. Now, this little box shows up because it's a, you know, a 15-foot square, I think it says, right? A 15-foot cube originating from you, out from you. Each creature within must make a con save, right? So, so it pretty much centers on you, right? So, but notice that I can actually position this, right? So if this was like a fireball, right, you can position this, but because it's got a template, you would place it here. But just for example, I'm going to just move it here, even though it, you know, it's where you are. I'm just kind of giving you the demo. Is notice that it shows which creatures are in its area of effect. So if I were to move it here, I could now get both of those. And if I moved it down here, I'd only get that one, etc. Right? So it's just it's a neat little way of telling you, hey, who can I get? It's going to automatically calculate if a targeted monster is going to be affected by it. And notice, you know, I haven't clicked anything and I'm able to reposition it, but for Thunder Wave, we'd probably just do this because it's centered on you, right? So we just start it here, bang, and unfortunately there's nothing in there, but if there were, then we just roll the damage, right? I'd roll my saving throws and then we'd apply the damage as normal. Now that this template's on the thing, a couple of things. If we're in combat, as we move from round to round, these templates will automatically disappear, but after a spell is cast like this, if you want to get rid of the template, move over here to the measurement controls, right? This little ruler looking thing. And when you click on that, notice now that this little icon shows up again, and notice it's turning orange to unhighlighted. You can just move your mouse over it and then just click delete and it's now off the screen. And again, always remember, if you're taking any action over here, to always go back and reselect the basic controls icon. Otherwise, you won't be able to click on your character, things of that nature. So that is spell templates. And just to kind of show you, I'm going to go back to Krusk here. He's going to cast his fireball, right? Same thing, consume, place measure template. And notice, right, I can now position this wherever I want, and it's going to tell us, you know, it might be hard to see, but if I place it here, it's going to hit Vigon, Krusk, and the 2 gnolls. So this is what the measure template is, and it just automatically tells us, you know, bang, I've positioned it there, and now, you know, you'll roll your damage, and off it goes. The other thing that's been fixed, which is pretty cool, and we're not quite there yet, but is this idea of casting spells at a higher level. Oh, see, it's not working because I got to go back there, right? If I recast that fireball, right, I'm going to cast it as a 5th level spell, right? So let's cast it, let's position it here. And now notice, you know, when I did it the first time, it was 8d6. Now notice it's 10d6. So now it's going to know when you cast spells at higher levels and automatically tell you the dice to roll. And then you click it, roll the damage, and then we start rolling saving throws. So pretty cool. So that's basics of, you know, targeting, how the spells are working, how it's effective using things like AC auto calculation for hit, how it's using immunities, vulnerabilities, resistances to calculate hit points, and how we can apply it. So I hope you found that part of this useful. Again, always there to help once we get into combat and work through that. But I thought that was some pretty neat features that'll help, you know, hopefully speed things along. So let's talk about ammunition. And these are going to be targeted to folks like mostly Chris, you know, but I know Rob, you've got some stuff, and Pat's got some stuff. But here's how ammunition works, right? Up until now, and I'm going to be the same way, if they're non-magical arrows or non-magical bolts, we'll just work through it, right? As far as I'm concerned, we're not going to make you say, oh, well, you ran out, now you're screwed. Not going to do that. But if I use the longbow, right, it's going to do the 1d8 plus 2 piercing. Okay, and then I roll the damage and fine, that's all working fine and dandy. But what I'm starting to do, and I'm going to get it set up for everybody, is this idea of using ammunition on the character sheet. So that's shown up here, right? So see how it has ammunition, arrows 9, and I'll show you how I got that. I know it went really fast, but I wanted to show you that it says resource consumption, ammunition, arrows 9 for this longbow, okay? So if I were to go back to here just to kind of find a position, right? I've got 9 arrows, and let's take that arrow, another longbow shot, okay? Bang. Do damage, it's now down to 8. So it's going to consume the resources as you use them. Again, for non-magical arrows, I'll just keep upping that number, and I'm not going to worry. If you ever run out, let me know. We'll fix it, or you can fix it yourself. I'll show you how. But here's the deal. If you get magical arrows, so let's say, Krusk has 7 +1 arrows, and he wants to use a +1 arrow because let's say this is a super null and you require magic weapons to hit him, right? So you need to change to use those magic arrows, and we will consume magic arrows. So rather than keeping track of it offline or trying to manually do it, the way that you would consume this is you go back to your longbow, okay, and your inventory sheet. So this is a little bit of work, but it should be fairly quick, right? So double click the character, open up the character sheet, go to inventory, and then go to longbow. Then click on the little pencil icon for that row where it says edit item. When you go into edit item, most likely it's going to be on description, so click on the details tab. Then come down to here to resource consumption, and notice right now it says arrows 8. If you use this down arrow, it's going to show you all of the different ammunition that you have available to you. So I've got +1 arrows, I've got 1 +2 arrow, I could use that. But for now, I'm going to use a +1 arrow. And you select it, click close, done. That's all you had to do. So now, when I do the longbow attack, okay, 1d8 plus 2 piercing. Let's see, did it account for it? It did. And it should be taking into consideration the +1 plus the +1 to damage. But I don't think it did, so I may have to fix something on this because it's a test. Let me go back here. Let me try it with the +2, or maybe I've done it and set it up here with the +2. Oops, kept it there. But you noticed it consumed, right, which was one of the main points of this, right? So now I consumed, I was at 7, I'm now at 1. And if I use my +2 arrow, no, it's not calculating it, but it will, right? Now I've got 0. And because it's armed, because I'm using that as ammunition, if I try to do another attack, notice it says not enough resources left. So it'll warn you in the combat tracker in the chat that you don't have resources, and then you can just come back here, pick your resource, and then, okay, so I'm not going to use my +2, I'm just going to go back to my regular arrows and hit close. But let me take a quick peek. This should just take a second. Details on the +1 arrow, attack roll bonus, attack damage formulas +1. I'm not sure why it didn't bring those in. Equipped, maybe because I got to just do equipped. And maybe now if I do this, let's see if that was just all that was changing. No. All right, I'll look at that later. Long story short, that's how you change your ammunition for when you're, want to switch between magical or non-magical or different types of ammunition that you use for your ranged weapons. So pretty cool, pretty straightforward. Just go back to the main weapon, click on the edit, and then pick the ammunition type, and off you go. So then the last piece, and this is mostly for spell failures, where we've got in the campaign we've got the issues with the magic. So I've given everybody access to roll tables, and there's only a handful of those right now. But the way you get access to them is in the up here in all these little icons. Just go to this little one that looks like a table, rollable tables, right next to the music. And you'll see that there's only 3 types right now, right? So there's the wild search table. Yes, I've imported the wild search table. The damage type, so if we ever need to calculate a random damage type, I've built a table to do that. And then there's this magic failure. So if you guys ever fail a spell on that percentile dice when you cast a spell, you can come here. You just collect the table that you want. It'll open up, and then just click roll. Okay, and when you roll, right, it's gonna throw, again, I've turned dice off, that's why you're not seeing it. It'll throw your result in here. So I rolled a 62, spell fails, lose a spell slot. If I roll again, I rolled a 34 percentile dice, spell fails, lose a spell slot, right? So this is a way now, rather than, oh, catastrophe, you haven't seen this yet, but basically you're screwed. So that's how this works. And if you have to do a wild surge for some reason, same thing. I come here, open the wild surge table, click roll, and there's your cast mirror image, right? If I click roll again, you grow a long beard made of feathers that remain until you sneeze, okay? So this is how roll tables work. So if I say go to the roll table, that's where they're found. I do have one for a boomerang failure that I've got to just make available. It's not yet available, but if I were to do that real quick, custom roll tables, boomerang fail, configure permissions, all players have observer, save changes. It's now available. Oh, I see. I only gave it to Scott. That's why. But, here's your boomerang fail. So if you ever roll a 1 on your boomerang, I'm going to need you to roll on this table to see what happened. The fumble, you dropped it. You got to use some of your movement to go pick it back up. No big deal. So those are the main things I wanted to talk about. So hopefully you found this useful, helpful. We'll give these things a try this Sunday, and then we'll go from there. So thank you for your time. Good luck, and talk soon. Have a great day.